Hi guys, Toby now. Welcome to the part 2 of creating an ATM console application using C#. In the part 1 of this tutorial, we previewed the ATM app we were going to created the ATM app C# project, worked on the user, requested ATM card number and PIN, validated the user input, and logged in the user. In this part, we're going to display the ATM app menu, process the ATM app menu options, check balance, place deposit, make withdrawal, make transfer, view transactions, and log out the user. If you haven't watched the part 1 of this tutorial, please follow the link on the screen to watch it. All important links are also in the description. Please do well to subscribe and hit the like button, and also feel free to share your feedback and questions in the comment section. Alright, so to continue from where we left in the part 1 of this tutorial, let's create and display the ATM menu. Before we do that, let us do some refactoring. Let us refactor the welcome method in the ATM app class. Let's move this method to app screen class. Place it here. And then we are going to change the name to welcome customer. Okay. And then we are going to add a string parameter, full name, and then replace the selected account full name with just full name. Then let's replace this public keyword with internal static. You already know why we use static modifiers. So this is all we need to do here. Then let us go back to the entry class. Let's do some separation of concern. Instead of calling ATM app.welcome inside here, let's remove it entirely. And let's create a method called run inside our ATM app class. Let's go to the top. Just before this initialize data, let us create public void run method. Let's go back to the entry class, copy the welcome message to that run method, let's paste it here. Now let's go back and copy. Let us also copy this out, cut this out, and paste it here. Remember to remove this, and there we go. Set up run method. Then the next thing we are going to do is to call our app screen the welcome customer method, welcome customer method inside here. Now the welcome customer method takes in a string argument, so give it selected account dot full name, and there's it. Now let us go back to entry, remove this while loop. We don't need this for now. Remove it entirely. Let's call our run method here, ATM app. Let's run. Run. Good. Now let us hit Ctrl F5 to run our program and to check what we've done so far. All right, press enter to continue. Enter your card number. Let's use 321321. Enter your card PIN 1223123. Checking card number and PIN. Welcome back. Will be not easy. Press enter to continue. Good. This shows that the refactor we just did is working very well. Now let's create a method inside the app screen class to display the app menu. Go to app screen. another welcome customer method. Let us create a new method. Internal static void display app menu. Now this method will be responsible for displaying our ATM app menu. So what we'll do first of all is to clear the screen. Console.clear. Then we're going to give it a title. Console.writeLine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My ATM app menu. And that's it. No. This is the title. Okay. Console.writeLine again. WriteLine. Let us put the first item in our menu, which is accounts balance. Account balance. Let us copy this place and hit Ctrl D to duplicate it into 4 or 5 places so it can contain all of our menus. Number 2 main item is cash deposit. Number 3 menu item is withdrawal. Number 4 transfer. Number 5 transactions. And finally, number 6 is logout. And that is our display menu. Now let us call our display menu inside our run method. Go back to ATM app class, go to the run method, or let's call this app screen dot display app menu. All right, so hit Ctrl F5 to test our program. Press enter to continue. Enter your card number 321321. Enter to continue. Enter your card pin 123123. Enter. Welcome back. Ubinaeze. Press enter to continue. My ATM app menu, it is showing. As at this moment, we've not been able to write a code that is going to process the user input. So let's hit enter. Let's create another method. Let's call it private process menu option. Now we'll use this method to process the menu option the user selects. And so to do this, we'll use an enum to represent menu items. An enum is a special class that represents a group of constants. Constants are variables that are read only or that are unchangeable. So let's create an app menu enum inside the domain folder. Add a new folder called enums. Now inside this folder, let us create a new enum. Now the name of this is going to be app menu.cs. Add. So to create an enum, we use the enum keyword instead of class. So we'll make this a public enum app menu. So instead of class or interface, we use enum as the keyword. Add them and separate them with comma. Place deposit. Make withdrawal. Internal transfer. Internal transfer. View transaction. And logout. The first item of an enum has the value 0. So this has the value 0. The second item has the value 1, and so on and so forth. But then you can also assign your own enum values, and the next items will update the number accordingly. What this means is if you make this equal to 1, this will now be 1, this will now be 2, and so on and so forth. Because our menu starts with 1, we'll then go ahead and assign 1. We'll leave this like this so that it can represent our menu accordingly. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because we'll have 6 menu items. Save our enum, go back to our ATM app class. Inside the process menu option method, let's create a switch statement. Now, inside these switch statements, we are going to use our validator class that converts method to prompts the user to enter an option. An option. If you have watched the part 1 of this video, you understand what we did here. We're going to have case, the check balance. This is the first case. We're using an enum here. Console, right line, tracking account balance. That break. As you can see, we have an error here. So what this means is we cannot use the enum explicitly as an integer, so we'll have to convert it to an integer explicitly so that it can work as an integer. And another thing is we have to import the app menu enum to our code, and if we do that, use Ctrl dot and press enter, and that error message will disappear. So there we have it. Our first case has been taken care of. We are going to copy this and duplicate for other cases. So duplicated that a couple of times. The second case will now replace deposit. Placing deposit. So the third case will now be make withdrawal. Make withdrawal. Make withdrawal. Making withdrawal. Fourth case will be internal transfer. Making transfer. Internal transfer. This will be view transaction. Viewing transaction. Transactions. And finally, we'll have logout. Logging out. Logging out. Let's move this, guys, to our line. With switch statements, we have what we call the default case. This default case is a code that runs when the input selected by the user is invalid. Default action happens here. Break. Now let's call this method. Let's call this method inside the run method and run our code to test it. Alright, so hit Ctrl F5 to run our program to test it. Let's enter to continue. 321 321. Enter. 123 123. Welcome back. Will be now easy. Press enter to continue. Enter. Enter an option. See, it's showing already. Enter an option. Let us enter option 1. Checking account balance. Our switch statement is working. So far our code runs smoothly. Now the next thing we're going to do is to implement the various menu options. Let's start with the logout and default options. In the default case, let's write an error message. Utility. Print message. Invalid option. Option. False. For the logout case, let's create a logout process method inside the app screen class. Internal static void logout progress. So we're going to say console the white line. Thank you for using my ATM app. Using my ATM. Utility print dot animation. Console clear. Now going back to the ATM app class, let's call this method inside here. Say app screen logout progress. This should be logout. All right. It's okay now. That was a typo. Logout progress. Now let's also write a message. Utility.print message. You have successfully logged out. Please collect your ATM card. Now we are going to call the run method again. And let's hit save. Now let's try what we've got so far. Hit Control F5. Let's enter 321 321. Enter 123 123. Enter. Let's enter. Let's try the logout case, which is number 6. Option is 6. Enter. Thank you for using my ATM app. You have successfully logged out. Please collect your ATM card. As you can see, call the run method again. Enter your card number 321 321. Hit enter to continue 123 123. Checking card number and PIN. Welcome back. Now let's enter an invalid input. Say 9. Hit enter. Invalid option. Press enter to continue. And that's it. So basically our logout case and our default case have been taken care of. Now let's create an interface that will ensure our ATM app implements the core ATM services like place deposit, check balance, make withdrawal, and the rest. So now let's go to interfaces folder and create a new interface. We'll call this user account actions. It's an interface. We're going to add that. Add a public keyword. Now let's add the interface method check balance. Void place deposit void make withdrawal. And now for the internal transfer, we don't want to add this here because we want it to be like a plugin. So a user can actually do other things with their bank account without, it's not compulsory they're going to do transfer. So it can easily be plugged out, can be added, So that's why we don't want to put it in this interface. So because we want to handle that part of the code separately, we want to separate it from the core banking features like account balance checking, placing deposit, and making withdrawal. Now let's go ahead and implement this interface in our ATM app class. Go to the top of the class and use a comma and implement this user account actions. Now use control dots to to add this. We've implemented this methods. As you can see, we've been able to implement this interface methods on our ATM app class. So let's go ahead and create the processes for check balance Let's use utility print message to print the account balance. So let's say your account balance is selected account balance. And that's it. We need to put the amount, we have to put it in a money format, which will display the currency and display the money in a formatted 2 decimal place. So let's create a method for that purpose. Now let's go to utility class. In utility class, let's go down there and create a new method. Call it public. It's going to be static anyway. Public static string. This method is going to return a string format of our amount with currency information. So we're going to call this format amount. It will take a decimal. So let's return string.format. Culture. The format information will be inside here. Don't worry, I know you don't understand what I'm doing. I'm going to explain this in just a second. Then amount. And that's it. Now for this culture information, we're going to create a variable on top of our class. Let's create a field, private static culture info. Culture equal to new culture info, and the value of our culture info will be IG, which stands for Igbo, NG, which stands for Nigeria. Okay, let us use Control Dot to import using globalization. Now we've just imported this namespace. Using globalization, which is where this culture info class lives in. Now this culture info class is part of the .NET library that takes care of currency formatting. Now the string format method takes 3 arguments. The first argument gives the currency symbol or currency information. The second argument indicates the desired number of decimal places in the results string. And the last argument is the amount to be formatted. Now this takes care of the desired number of decimal places. For instance, if I put 3, our amount will be formatted in 3 decimal places, and so on and so forth. So we're going to format our amount in 2 decimal places. So now the culture information, if you want to get the one for your country's currency, you can search online for this information. There's a reference for culture info for various countries and languages in .NET documentation online. So search for your country's currency culture info and use it here. Place it under culture info. This is for Nigerian Naira, IG, NG, which stands for Igbo Nigeria. You see YONG, which is Yoruba. You also see HANG, which is Hausa, which all means the same thing, Naira. What you're going to do, go online and search for your country's culture info. Now let's go back to our our check balance method and wrap this guy utility the format amount around our selected account balance. Go back to our process admin and call this method there. Replace this checking account balance with this method. Hit Ctrl F5 to test our progress. Hit enter. Enter your code number 321321 123 123. Hit enter to continue. Welcome back over now. Okay, let's check account balance because we've been able to take care of that one. It's option number 1. Press enter. Your account balance is 50,000 naira. As you can see, currency symbol there is showing naira, and the money is being formatted in a good way. After the actual 50,000, we have like 2 zeros, which shows the 2 decimal places in our format. Now let's go ahead and implement the place deposits method. So remove this. Okay, let's give the user a notice. That line, let's have some line break here. Let's say only multiples of 500, multiples of 500 and 1,000 naira allowed. Add another line break. Alright, so now let's go to the out screen and create internal const string currency equal to and I go back to ATM app class and let's get the transaction amount from the user. Go to validator. And amount app screen. Let's see currency. Remember to add this $sign. So now let's simulate counting. Console right line. Line break. Checking and counting. Banknotes. Utility. The brands. Dot animation. And console the right line. To add some space. Now outside of this method, let's create another method called private or preview down notes count. It's amount. So we're going to have ends, thousand notes count is equal to amount by 1000 and 500 notes count is equal to amount modulus 1000, amount modulus of 1000 divided by 500. What this means is for 500 note counts, we are going to find the remainder when 1000 divides the amount and divide same by 500. So that will give us the number of 500 Naira notes or 500 notes bill. Okay. So now let's write the summary to the console the right line. We'll add some line break. Summary. Console the right line. So the right line. App screen. That's currency. 1000 X 1000 notes counts is equal to 1000 1000 note counts console the right line. And the currency symbol. Okay. Dot CR 500 times 500 comes is equal to the actual value 500 times 100 counts 500 comes console the right line. Total amounts now be equal to now the utility that formats amounts and some line breaks. Now let's ask the user to confirm their action. Int option equal to validator. Let's convert int enter one to confirm. Return option that equals 1. What this means is this method is going to return a boolean, either false or true, depending on the confirmation the user enters. If it's not 1, then it returns false. If it's 1, it returns true. Now let's go back to our pledge deposits and begin to do some bad clause. If transaction amount is less than or equal to 0, we're going to print message utility dot print message amount needs to be greater than 0. Try again. I have to put false here because an error message. Then we return. We're going to return void and nothing will happen. Now, if transaction amount modulus 500 does not have a value of 0, then you know that it's not in the multiples of 500 or 1000. So we're going to write an error message dot print message enter deposit amount a multiple of 500 or 1000. Try again. Return. Now we're going to check what the user wants to continue or not. Review banknote count, transaction amounts. I believe you understand what is going on here. We're going to check if it's false. First of all, if it returns false, we will now print an error message. So it's dot print message. You have cancelled your action. Then we return. That means the user cancelled their action by themselves. They don't want to deposit money anymore. To continue with this process, we need to create a transaction class and a transaction interface that will handle our transaction records. So now let's go to entities folder and create a new class. Now this class, we're going to call it transaction. So remember to add public. So now let's go ahead and add some properties to our transaction class. The first property we're going to add is going to be of the type long. And the name will be transaction ID. Second property will be write prop, then you hit double tap the tab key to be able to write it as fast as I am writing it here. The second property is going to be the user bank account ID. The third will be date time. That's the type. Date time. Transaction date. And the fourth should be transaction type, which will be prop D. The type is transaction type. And we'll have transaction type. Well, as you can guess, we don't have this transaction type created already. So we're going to create it as an enum. So let's go to enums and create a new enum of name transaction type. You already know how to create an enum. So we're going to make it public and remove the class keyword and replace it with enum. So we're going to have deposits as transaction withdrawal, and transfer. These are transaction types that we're going to be able to record. So we'll have an enum created for them. Go back to a transaction class and import transaction type. And it's been taken care of. So the next property is going to be string description. And the last is going to be of the type decimal and transaction amount. It's going to S. Now let's create an interface. Go to the interfaces folder, add a new interface called iTransaction. Interface. Now let's add some interface methods. Insert transaction. Now it's going to have some parameters. Use bank account ID, transaction type, type, decimal, months, string description. On the second interface method, we'll call this view transaction. With no parameters. Now this transaction type, we made an error. There's an error there. Let's show the transaction type. Then bring in the space. Hit Ctrl S. Go back to your ATM app class private and implement this. Let's implement this. Interface and transaction. Bring in the namespace. Implement it. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin to implement insert transactions. Now let's create a new transaction object. Transaction. Go to new transaction. For the transaction ID, we need to create a method that generates transaction ID. Let's go to utility class and create a method. Private static long tran ID. Now we're going to create a method public static long get transaction ID. So what we're going to do is return transaction ID. So what this does is it adds to the value of transaction and ID and returns it. When you call this method, it will return 1. Call it again, it will return 2. Let's go back to our ATM app class and transaction ID is equal to utility dot get transaction ID. Transaction ID. So okay, this is an error. Go back to transactions class and then change this to ID. You know, we're using a comma case so we don't get ourselves confused. So and hit save. Go back to your ATM app class and there is it. Next thing is the next property is user bank account ID. Which is equal to user bank account ID. The next thing is transaction date. Is equal to date time dot now. Next thing is transaction type. Just equal to tran type. transaction amount. Description equal to Alright, so we've been able to create a new transaction object and populated it with values. Let's create a new list of transactions. Before then, let's save. Let's clear. Let's clear these places so that we can know where we're working on. Okay. Now let's leave this to go to the top of this class and create a new field. I'm going to call this field private list of type transaction. We're going to call it lists of transaction. Let's instantiate this. Here, list of transactions is equal to new list and let us add transaction object to the list. So we'll have list of transactions. Let's add new transaction object. That'll be it. Now, if you remember, we started working on this transactions object and all. We were working on this place deposit method. So let's complete this method. Let's bind transaction details to transaction object. This transaction object we just created. So we can add the deposit record to our transaction list. So let's call the insert transaction method, and the first thing we're going to add is the user bank account ID, which is selected account.id. And the next thing is user transaction type. So the transaction type is going to be transaction type. It's an enum. It is a deposit type, so we'll just say deposit, and the amount is going to be transaction amounts, and lastly is going to be the description. We don't want to add anything, just leave an empty space there. And so having done that, we need to update account balance. Need to update account balance, which is going to now be selected account balance plus, because it's deposits, equal to transaction amount. Let's print success message to the screen. So we'll go with utility dot print message we will now say, oh gosh, we'll now say your deposits of to the format amount, transaction amount, was successful. True was a success message. Now finally, let's go and call this place deposits method inside here. Say place deposit. Now hit Ctrl F5 to run and test our program. Press enter to continue. 321 321 123 123. Press enter to continue. Option 2. Only multiples of 500 and 1000 allowed. Let's say want to add 1500. Checking and counting banknotes. Summary: 1000 times 1 equals 1000. 5000 times 1 equals 500. Total amount is 1500. Enter 1 to confirm. Enter 1. Your deposit of 1500 was successful. Let's enter to continue. So let's implement make withdrawal. Remove this. Now add the transaction amount. Variable. And assign 0 to it. So now let's create some withdrawal method that would allow users to select some default amount. Go to the app screen, class, create a new method called internal static int select amounts. This method is going to return the amount in int. Console the right line for space to add the line. Console the right line. Option number 1. We'll call this option 500. And then we want to add the currency symbol here. So we're going to do it this way. 0. So you add a currency. Good. And so we're going to duplicate this value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take this one out. And we're going to have 0 options. 5. 0. Going to have let's add this. Add this. 6, 7, 8. So we will have order. Don't need currency here. And option 1 is 500. Option 2 is 1000. Option 3 is 2000. Option 4 is 5000. Option 5 is option 5 is 10,000. Option 6 is 15,000. Option 7 is 20,000. Option 8 is 40,000. So add console right line, add some space after this. Selected amount. So this is going to be for to validator dot convert and say option enter option. Okay. Now we're going to use the switch statements and switch the selected amount. Okay, now we'll have case 1. Case 1 will return 500. Return 500. Right. Right. Case 2 return 1000. Right. Case 3. Case 4. Case 5. case 6, case 7, case 8. Case 9. Now we'll have the first case. So basically, case 1, case 2, case 3 is 2000. Case 4 is 5000. Case 5 is 10,000. Case 6 is 7. Case 8 case 9. We have case 0 here and the fourth case. The fourth. So for case 6, we have it's 15,000. 7 should be 20,000. 8 should be 40,000. And 0 is 0. The fourth case is minus 1. We're going to return minus 1 here. Not only that, we are also going to tell them they enter the wrong input. Print message. Invalid input. Try again. We're going to call the select amount. Going back to the make withdrawal method, let us get the selected amount. Selected amount. From app screen, the selected amount. Select amount method. Now let's check if selected amount is minus 1. Selected amount will be equal to app screen, the selected amount. What this means is we're going to call it again. We're going to call it again. Else if selected amount is not equal to 0, if it's not equal to 0, then transaction amount will not be equal to selected amount. Else transaction amount is equal to validator that converts amount on screen dot CR currency. If the user selected 0 as their option, then this is what's going to happen. Transaction amount is going to be, we'll ask for the transaction amount directly. So that being done, we already have our transaction amount. So we'll now do some input validations on the transaction amount. So let's say input validation. So if transaction amount is less than or equal to 0, utility, let's print message amount needs to be greater than 0. Try again. We'll check if transaction amount. Let's check if the transaction amount was entered in a multiple of 500 and 1000. So we say this 0. It's not equal to 0. Then we'll print message. You can withdraw amount in multiples of 500 or 1000 naira. Try again. Pause. Return. Now let's do some business logic validation. If transaction amount is greater than selected account, account balance, print message, withdrawal failed. It's too low to withdraw. To withdraw 280 amount transaction amount. Return. Now let's create a minimum kept amount variable and assign a value of 500 naira to it. Let's go to the top, this class, and create private const decimal minimum kept amount. Let's give it value of 500. Now we'll now check if selected account balance minus transaction amount is less than minimum kept amount. If it's true, then we're going to print another message. Withdrawal failed. Your account needs to have minimum utility amount minimum kept amount. Return. Now we're going to bind details to bind withdrawal details to transactions objects. Transaction objects. So we're going to insert transaction details. I've selected bank account, selected account.id, ID, transaction type would be withdrawal, and transaction amount we can add minus here. Let us update the account balance and print success message. Selected account balance minus equal to transaction amount. success message, success message, success message, utility, different message, you have successfully withdrawn utility format, amount, transaction amount, true. Now let's call this method in our switch statements. Net withdrawal. Make withdrawal. Let's hit Ctrl F5. Enter to continue. 3 2 1 3 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 3. Enter. Number 3 is our option. Enter. Okay, we're gonna choose number 6. It's 15,000. You have successfully withdrawn 15,000 naira. Okay. Now let's try the other option as well. Hit Ctrl F5 to try the other option. 3 2 1 3 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 3. Number 3 is our option. Now let's enter option 0. Enter amount. Say 5,000. Enter. You've successfully withdrawn 5,000 naira. Now let's go and check that withdrawn. Right now, let's create the internal transfer logic. We would first off create an entity for this process. Go to the entities folder and create a new class. Let's call it internal transfer. Add public. Now let's add some properties to it. Prop tab. Decimal. Transfer amount. Transfer amount. Tab. Long. Recipient bank account. Recipient bank account number. String. Recipient bank account name. Save, close this class and go back to the app screen class and create a method called internal transfer form. So let's say internal transfer internal transfer form. This method is not static because it returns an object. So let's remove a static keyword from this class, so we can create a non-static method inside of it. Now let's create the object of this class. Internal transfer equal to new internal transfer. Internal transfer object. So we can now have internal transfer dot recipient account number, bank account number equal to, let's get that from the user validator dot convert account number is in long, recipients recipient recipients account. Let me also for myself. Recipients account number. Internal transfer. The account name. That's transfer amount. Is equal to validator. Let's convert decimal amount CR. Finally, internal transfer dot recipient account name equal to utility dot get user inputs. Recipients name. So we're going to return internal transfer, and that will be it. But we use this to collect the data for the transfer. Now we'll go back to our ATM app class and create a new method. This method, we're going to call it process internal transfer. So it will have private void process internal transfer. and it will take in parameter internal transfer, taking the internal transfer parameter. Now we're going to do some check. If internal transfer the transfer amount is less than or equal to 0, we print an error message. Utility dot message, print message, amount needs to be more than 0. Try again. Return. Now we need to check sender's account balance. So we're going to do if internal transfer that amount transfer amount is greater than selected accounts that's account balance. Then we're going to send an error message, print message, transfer failed. You do not have enough balance to transfer enough balance to transfer utility that format amount internal transfer to transfer amount. Force return. Let's also check the minimum kept amount. Let's see if the minimum kept amount will be affected if this transfer is done. If selected account, so account balance minus the minimum kept amount is less than minimum kept amount, utility dot print message transfer failed. Because your account needs to have minimum utility format amounts into minimum get amount was return. Now let's check if receiver's bank account number is valid. The selected bank account is equal to, we are now going to use link queue to filter this list from user accounts. In user accounts list, where user accounts, the account number is equal to internal transfer dot receiver's bank account number, select user accounts. Then let's add this first for default attribute to it. This first or default attribute is a link queue method. We need to import link queue namespace. Use control dots and you import link queue namespace. Link queue stands for language integrated query. It's a set of library that extends the C# language by the addition of query expressions which are similar to SQL statements. Link queue query expressions can be used to conveniently extract and process data from arrays, enumerable classes, XML documents, relational databases, and third-party data sources. So you can look it up for more details. Now let's do some check. If selected bank account receiver is equal to none, which means nothing was seen, nothing was selected. There's print error message. Transfer failed. Receiver bank account number is invalid. False. Then we return. Let's do a check to check receiver's name. Let's check if receiver's name is valid. If selected bank account receiver dot full name is not equal to internal transfer dot receiver bank account name, then we'll print an error message. Utility that print message transfer failed. Recipients bank account's name is invalid. Return recipients bank account name does not match. False. Return. Now let's add transaction. To transaction record for sender, and it's going to be insert transaction. We now have selected account. That's ID. Transaction type is transfer. The transfer amount is going to be internal transfer. The transfer amount is going to be minus. And then finally, we're going to add some descriptions to this one. We'll say transferred selected bank account receiver. That's account name number. Let's put the account name in bracket too. Selected name. Now let's update sender's account balance. Selected account that's account balance minus report to internal transfer dot transfer amount. Now let's add transaction record for receiver. So we're going to say insert transaction, selected bank account receiver, that's ID, transaction type, the transfer, internal transfer, internal transfer with amounts, transfer amounts, It transferred from selected account, that's account number, and selected account, that's name. Now let's receivers account balance. So selected bank account receiver dot account balance, account balance minus plus equal to internal transfer, the transfer amount. And success message. Let's print success message to the console. Print message. You have successfully transferred utility, the format amount, internal transfer, the transfer amount, to internal transfer dot bank account name. So this is going to be true as it's a success message. Finally, let's update the process app menu with this. Okay, let us get the internal transfer from the app screen. That's internal transfer form. The reason we have this error here is because this method, internal transfer, is not a static method, and so we cannot access it as a static method. But we need to create an instance of the app screen class so we can access its non-static method. Let's go to the top and create a field. Say private, read only, app screen, good. So we'll create constructor ATM app and instantiate this class inside it, and instantiate the app screen class. Say screen is equal to new app screen. Now let's go back to this place, to the point where we have an error, and change this app screen to screen. And you see our error disappears. Now we are going to call the process internal transfer method and feed it with our internal transfer object. And that will be all. And let's hit Ctrl F5 to run our program. Enter 321 321 123 123. Four is our option for transfer. Enter recipient's account number. We're going to use 456789 as the account number. Enter amount. Say going to transfer 5,000. Enter recipient's name. Recipient's name is Amaka Hope. Mind you, this info is coming from our list database. Hit enter. You have successfully transferred 5,000 naira to Amaka Hope. Perfect. Press enter to continue. Now you have successfully transferred. Let's go to that place and correct the typo there. It's a T, so let's put a Y there. All right, so let's implement the view transaction method. Before we do that, let's just call the method here, view transaction method. Okay. Let's go down there and look for that method. Because if you remember, we used the iTransaction interface to implement these methods on our ATM app class. Okay, here it is. Of this. So before we do anything, let us filter our transaction list to this particular user. Let's say var filtered transaction list. Equal to list of transactions where we are using lambda expression here. You can go look that up if you don't know what it is. It's a feature in C# that allows us to use functional approach to selected account.id to list. So we've been able to filter our lists. So see what we did there. List of transactions where T arrow function T.user bank account ID equals selected account.id. Then we filtered it to a list. So now let's check if there's a transaction yet. If there's a transaction, so if filtered list, filtered transaction list that counts. So we are going to check if the count is less than or equal to 0. Then we can now print a message. Say it's the print message. You have no transactions transaction yet. It's not an error message, so let's just say true. Else so now before we display the transaction table, we will need to install console table. Console tables is a NuGet package that draws a simple formatted table on the console. Now to install that package, let's go to Solution Explorer, right click the dependencies, click Manage NuGet Packages. Now go to Browse and search for console tables. Console tables. Now click and install. Say OK. Accept the license. OK. Is that right? Close this window. Also display the table. That table, we go to new console table. Now place your cursor here, use Ctrl dot to bring in the namespace control tables. Now we're going to add our table headers inside console table method. Transaction date type descriptions amounts plus off screen, that's currency. All right. So as you can see, we've been able to create a table from the console table with headers. Now let us run an iteration through our transactions list. Let's say tran in filter transaction list. Okay, we're going to say table.addRow and the transaction ID the transaction date the transaction type the description. Where is it? Dot transaction amounts. Table the options dot enable counts is equal to false. We don't want to enable the automatic counts, the row counts. we're going to use the transaction ID as the count. So let us do table.write method. Let's also print message to the screen. Let's say you have a created transaction list accounts transaction true. We've been able to create our view transaction, process. So have we already called that? Okay, we've called it here. Okay, before we try this out, we will have to wrap these two inside a while loop, while true, so that the process will continue until we decide to log out. All right, so let's hit Control F5 to test our program. Press enter to continue. Enter your card number 321321. Enter your card PIN 123123. Welcome back. Open now. All right, so let's first of all check the transactions. Hit 5. You have no transactions yet. Press enter to continue. Okay, let's check our account balance. Press 1, enter. Okay, your account balance is 50,000 naira. Press enter to continue. Now let us deposit cash. Number 2, only multiples of 500 and 1,000 naira allowed. Let us enter okay, let's deposit 25,000 naira. Okay, press 1 to confirm. Your deposit of 25,000 naira was successful. Press enter to continue. Let's check our account balance again. Press 1. Enter your account balance is 75,000. Press enter to continue. Let us withdraw. Press 3. Press enter. And now let us enter a number that is not in the option. Let's say 10 is not in the option. We're going to get an error. Invalid input. Try again. Press enter. Now let's enter a number that is in the option. Let's say, for instance, 5. Amount needs to be greater than 0. Try again. There's an error here. Because I mean, we should be able to, withdraw 10,000 naira. We have 75,000. Let's enter to continue. Let's check our account balance. We have 75,000. Let's go ahead and all right, so we're going to fix that error. Let's try a transfer. Press enter to continue. Enter recipient's account number. Okay, we're going to enter 456789. Enter amount. Let's say we want to send this recipient. We want to send them the whole of the money in our account, say 75,000, which we know is not supposed to be possible because of the minimum kept balance. Let's say 75,000 naira. Enter recipient's name. Name is Amaka Hope. Press enter. You have successfully transferred 75,000 naira to Amaka Hope, which is an error somewhere too. We're not supposed to be able to transfer 75,000 naira. So enter to continue. Press 1 to check account balance. Account balance is 0, which is supposed not to be possible. Now let us check our transactions. Press 5. Okay, these are the transactions we did. Transactions are working. We have successfully done like 2 transactions. We have 2 transactions here. Let's enter to continue. Let's press 6 to log out. Thank you for using my ATM app. You have successfully logged out. Please collect your ATM card. Now let us close this console window and go and fix those 2 errors. The first error is with make withdrawal. Let's go down to make withdrawal and find out what the problem is. This is make withdrawal. This is where the problem lies because it's only when we select a wrong input, and this is where it handles the wrong input. So now let's go back to app screen and see what's going on there and check the select amount. Okay, you see we have the select amount here. We called it back. We're going to remove it. Let's remove this first of all because we don't need to call it back again. Let's hit Ctrl S, Ctrl F5 and try that again and see what's going to happen. Press enter to continue. 3 2 1 3 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 3. Now what do? We want to let's check our account balance first. We'll have 50,000. Okay, let's try withdrawal. Now we want to try an option that is not there, say 11. Invalid input, continue. Now we're going to try a number that is there. Let's say we want to withdraw 1,000. Press option 2. Amount needs to be greater than 0 to try again. So there's an error. We've not been able to fix that error. So let's go back and check this place. Selected. Are we supposed to call this again? We're not supposed to call this again. I think that's what the issue is. We're supposed to call this method, make withdrawal method again, not that. And when we do that, we need to return so that it doesn't continue. We have to return so that it doesn't continue running the codes inside this method. So what we did here was a recursive calling of the same method. So hit Ctrl S, Ctrl F5 to run and test this program to see if we've solved the issue. Press enter to continue. 3 2 1 3 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 3. Press enter to continue. Okay, let's check our account balance, 50,000. Now let us try to withdraw. So let's try a number that does not exist, say 15. Invalid input, try again. Press enter. And let us try to withdraw say 10,000. Press 5. You have successfully withdrawn 10,000 naira. Perfect. Now let's try the other option of withdrawal. Say 0. Enter amount. Say 3,000. You have successfully withdrawn 3,000 naira. Let's enter to continue. Let us check our account balance again. We'll have 37,000 naira. Let us check the transactions. Okay, good, perfect. Here it is. You have 2 transactions, and here is our transaction table, the way it's looking: transaction date, type, description, amount. And as you can see, it's looking so beautiful and well placed. Enter to continue. Now we'll have to go back and fix the error we had in our transfer. Okay, process internal transfer. Now let us check the minimum kept balance if everything is okay. Selected account balance minus. Oh no, this is wrong. This is wrong. We are supposed to have selected account balance minus internal transfer dot transfer amount. This is what we are supposed to do here. Make sure it corrects here. So we are checking the difference of our balance with the transfer amount. If it's less than the minimum kept amount, we Ctrl F5 to try it again. 321 321 123 123. Let's check our account balance first. We'll have 50,000. We want to transfer, okay, all the money we have in our accounts. So let's hit 4. Enter recipient's account number 456789. Enter amounts 50,000 naira. Enter recipient's name, Amaka Hope. Press enter. Transfer failed. Your account needs to have minimum 500 naira. Press enter to continue. All right, so let us check our account balance again. We have 50,000. Now let us withdraw 49,500. Go to withdrawal. Use set of orders. 49,500 naira. Press enter. You've successfully withdrawn 49,500 naira. Press enter to continue. Now let's check our account balance again. We have 500 naira in our account balance. Let's try and do another transaction. Let's say we want to transfer the 500 naira to somebody, or maybe anything. Let's say enter an option, transfer 4. Enter recipient's account number 456789. Press enter to continue. Enter amount. We want to transfer half of that amount, which is 250. Enter recipient's name, Amaka. Oh, transfer failed. Your account needs to have minimum 500 naira. So basically, this is working perfectly as it should. All right, so congratulations to you for making it this far in this video, and also thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. If you haven't already, please do well to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and do well to comment if you have any questions and suggestions.